Did you know a Montana kid born on a ranch just outside Lewistown during the Great Depression grew up to be a leading mind in the field of astrogeophysics and spent time in space studying the sun? Well, that's the story of Loren Acton. Recently, Dr. Acton sat down with Q2's Krista Rose to talk about his career and what he thinks of NASA's new frontier.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
I was very excited to speak with astronaut Loren Acton about his life and career. So much so, I wore my NASA t-shirt for the interview. It's hard to believe, but before flying into space, Loren was a ranch kid from Fergus County. He would go on from a one-room schoolhouse near Lewistown to become one of the leading scientists at the Lockheed Missile and Space Company, and most of his young career was taking place while the U.S. space program was kicking into high gear.
It was a wonderful time to be entering that field because we had access to space for the first time, to take our instruments up there and see things from above the atmosphere. And the opportunities were just endless. I mean, I was really very lucky.
And, as luck would have it, in 1978, Loren's team won a NASA contract to fly one of their instruments on an upcoming Space Lab mission. Loren jumped at the chance to go into outer space and run the experiments, but they wouldn't get off the ground until 1985. His shuttle was the famous Challenger space shuttle, and even before the disaster in 1986, Challenger was facing some issues.
We finally got on the launch pad on July the 12th and aborted at T-minus 3 seconds.
That had to be terrifying. I was reading about that. What happens when you're 3 seconds from shooting off and you abort the mission?
Well, you get off and go to the post-launch parties.
The launch was aborted due to a malfunction of a coolant valve. This caused the shutdown of all 3 main engines. But 17 days later, things were fixed, and they were back on the launch pad, ready to go to orbit.
You're a farm kid from a ranch kid, I should say, from Montana. You're strapped in to a space shuttle. When you finally do launch, what is going through your head?
Well, pretty much you know.
The crew spent over a week in space, orbiting the Earth 127 times and traveling over 3 million miles. Their experiments were successful, but I had one burning question about Loren's time above the Earth.
Is space fun?
No, it wasn't for me, and this was a big surprise. I had envisioned this as sort of a camping trip in space with my friends, and I was prepared to enjoy it thoroughly. What happened is I got up there and I overdosed on responsibility. And so I was so emotionally overwhelmed by the need to do everything perfectly that it really wasn't fun. It was still an adventure. Looking back on it is great. I was really pretty depressed about the whole thing.
Though it may not have been fun, Loren remembers his crew being there for him, especially astronaut Carl Hennice, who told him about 4 days in to enjoy the once-in-a-lifetime ride. After that, Loren said he started to loosen up, and he even earned an interesting distinction of being the first man to eat hot sauce in space.
Loren had a special bottle of Louisiana red hot sauce on board, and actually several of us enjoyed it very much. Somehow or other, it illustrates the fact that tastes do change a little bit in orbit.
Though it's been over 35 years since Loren flew into space, I was curious about his thoughts on the new frontier SpaceX and NASA are forging, with planned trips back to the moon and eventually to Mars.
Well, I'm really enthusiastic about human spaceflight. I've been interested in going to Mars for a long time. It's a real challenge. There's lots and lots of reasons why it's difficult and dangerous. But hey, it's the next place that we can go, and let's get at it. I don't mind at all that we're going back to the moon first. So I think it's good for us. It's good for the next generation, and it's good to have been a generation that got to experience it in person.
Reporting in Billings, Chris DeRose, MTN News.
Thanks, Chris. And Chris says a huge thank you to NASA for some of that video and those photos used in the piece. If you'd like to know more about Loren and his incredible journey, check out this story at ktvq.com.